Windographer can read data in from a database and write to a database. This quick video will demonstrate. I'm Tom Lambert, head of Windographer development at UL Solutions, and I'm using version 6.0.2 of Windographer. File import from database brings up this window, at the top of which I can edit or add the database connection, which you can define with an ODBC data source or a connection string. You only have to set that up once. Here's the list of the datasets in the database, and if it's a long list, I can filter by name or not filter. I'll choose one or more and I'll click import to start the process. Now, compared to storing data in individual Windog files, storing data centrally in a database has advantages, but speed is not one of them. I'm getting fast transmission here with this local database, but if the database is distant or huge or poorly optimized or just busy with other work, it might be slower. Okay, there are my datasets. I can analyze them and change them just like if I had opened a Windog file. If I, for example, flag some data in this first dataset, and then export to DB, it notices that only the first dataset has changed. The other two have not changed. And when I export, it sends only the data that has changed. In my case, that's just a few flagged segments, so the export is quick. I'll make a bigger change now by running my basic QA workflow. That runs multiple flag rules on all three datasets. And now I'll export again to the DB. This time it recognizes that all three datasets have changed, so it sends all the new information to the database. To test, I will import one of them back. There, it is all cleaned up, so we can see the effects of those changes I made, and the history window should give details. Yeah, so again, it's a lot like working with Windog files. The database is an open system. That's part of its charm, right? You can interact with it with other processes, other applications, not just Windographer. So you can put data into your database any way you wish. Maybe you use Windographer Monitor to watch for incoming data from your fleet of Met towers and append that into your database automatically. Or maybe you have some other system. But one way to add data to your database is just to use Windographer. Here, I'll open a file and export it to the database. This here shows that Windographer recognizes that it's new data. You didn't import this from a DB. It lacks a database ID, and the database will assign it an ID number if you choose to export it. Now the list of datasets in the database should include that new dataset I just added, and voila. So that's it. This feature used to be available for enterprise licenses only, but now all users have access to it. Now to finish, I'm going to give a few geeky details about the communication with the database. The punchline is that it's very flexible. If you're wondering whether Windographer can talk to your database, the answer is probably yes. Windographer talks to the database exclusively by calling store procedures, which are functions in the database. So if your database platform supports store procedures, Windographer should be able to integrate with it. It doesn't matter what your table names are or your field names. It doesn't matter how your tables relate to one another. Windographer doesn't have to know any of that. All that matters is that your database has the necessary set of store procedures that behave according to our specifications. You got to have one called Windog read list of datasets R3 with these parameters. And it's got to return a record set with certain field names and so on. There's a handful of store procedures for import from DB, another handful for export to the DB. So you, the database owner, you have to write these store procedures to translate the information in your database into a format that Windographer can understand. And the same is true in the other direction. Windographer will say to the database, here's some time series data or here's some flagged segments, and your store procedure needs to put that info into the appropriate table. That translation by the store procedures is why Windographer can talk to any database. Now, platforms. My test database is in SQL Server. Most of our experience is with SQL Server databases, some with MySQL, Postgres, and a bit of Oracle. If your database has an ODBC driver, and if it supports store procedures, then Windographer should be able to talk to it. Contact us if you'd like to see our database specifications and start hooking up Windographer to your database. Thank you for watching.